Hi.
Okay, so welcome everyone to this policy committee meeting, 12th of February. Do we have any apologies? No? So we will move on to declarations of interest. Do any members have a conflict of interest with any items on today's agenda that we need to record? Good, that's a no. So public forum, we have some members of the public wishing to speak today, and Lou Rohloff will be going to come and join us, and Patricia Gilmer is with him as a supporter. So come please, Lou.
So what part of it, what are they talking about?
Oh, they're going to speak to the item number, corporate planning, the annual plan, which is number 37. So Lou, you have 5 minutes to speak, and after 4 minutes, the bell will ring to warn you that you've got another minute left. And you have given us some paperwork in advance.
Madam Chair, I am a little bit concerned. The detail in this is what amounts, in effect, to a position statement by Greypower in Upper Hutt. And we have an audience outside, as you do. And I think it's necessary, therefore, for me to read the material that I've left with you. I'm not referring to the backup data, but I know from trying it, it's probably going to take about 7 minutes, and I would plead, perhaps, for an extension.
Let's see how we get to, how far we get, and then we'll do an extension.
Thank you. Well, my name is Lou Rohloff, and I'm accompanied by Patricia Gilmer. We are aware Council will soon undertake a formal rates review. Now, the review will provide an opportunity for you, as elected representatives, to establish affordability parameters which might reverse the presently insidious impoverishment of vulnerable householders. Many working families and older people on fixed incomes are struggling to endure the first year's impact of unsustainable, decade-long escalation of rates-sourced funding for the repair, renewal, and future provision of presently deteriorating infrastructural assets. The escalation is signalled to continue in annual increments hugely in excess of our community's financial resources. Now, in a submission to the long-term plan 2024-34, Greypower, as joint host of the newly formed Upper Hutt Seniors Network, offered to collaborate with Council to bring community organisations together to hear, understand, and positively respond to local and central government planning and other service initiatives, particularly where such initiative impacts on community wellbeing imperatives. Together with SeniorNet, the other community-based network host, we wish to acknowledge the proactive outreach of council officers and those individual elected representatives who have subsequently engaged with us. Our call for user-friendly tools to bring greater transparency to consultation exercises has seen council officers prepare an online rates calculator, which is an application which might be launched for public access coincident with the intended rates review. The tool will assist ratepayers to accurately determine the impact of rating on their household budgets. However, with regard to their deliberation of the rates review, we suggest elected representatives need to develop an affordable for vulnerable householders baseline for the outcome of the review. Our initial input to this rates review, we have applied our experiences of living in retirement to accurately calculate in advance of government announcements the increased weekly superannuation payments to recipients of New Zealand superannuation on the 1st of April this year. This forthcoming increase is delivered as partial compensation for the hugely increased living costs during the years ended 31st December 2023 and 2024. It is not an increased budget provision for continuing inflation, nor can it be reserved for our obligation to fund local government expenditure during 2025. The benchmarks represented by the tabulated data, which is attached to my words, will helpfully guide councillors to distribute rating impact in more equitable relationship to the income resources of vulnerable households.
Lou, just could we pause for a second? We're going to go over the 5-minute mark. So would somebody move or like to move that we increase it? Councillor Holderness, seconded by Councillor Carson. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you, Lou. Please continue.
Thank you very much. The Steering Committee of Seniors Network has adopted this submission to support its project to encourage community organisations hearing, understanding and contributing an older person's perspective on local and central government initiatives. Further to this submission, the Seniors Network will collaborate with Council to encourage other community organisations to alert their membership and the general public to use the internet-based rates calculator and contemplate how much expenditure on items other than rates or rents they will need to forego to accommodate local government costs within their meagre incomes. It will prove a challenging and unrewarding task unless an effective mitigation provision results from Council's undertaking of the rates review. We fear the funding tools presently available to Council are inadequate and they render effective mitigation beyond the scope of local government. It seems inevitable economic reality will see our community having to take our concerns to our local parliamentary representative, or alternatively, accompanied by local government leadership, make representations at ministerial level for a change to central government funding of regionally or nationally integrated infrastructure. We believe the local funding of essential structural assets and services by property rating and other local charges alone is just not any longer fit for purpose. Any question you might have related to our representations on this difficult topic seem deserving of considered reply rather than an instinctive response. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we, being part of the Seniors Network, will welcome an ongoing conversation with Council's elected members and with divisional managers. And having said that, I thank you for the tolerance you've given me in time to get our feelings on the matter across.
Thank you very much, Lou and Patricia, for the work you've been doing on this. and the work that you've been helping the council officers with the new tool, which I understand is going to be launched next week. And the staff have asked me to thank you both for contributing to the development of that tool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Swales has a question.
Yes, if you don't mind.
Yes, certainly.
No, thank you for coming along. So with the engagement that you've had with our officers, are you aware of the rates differential that operate in the city?
Am I aware of the rates?
Rates differential that operates in the city?
I'm having difficulty hearing.
Sorry, Luke.
Yeah.
Upper Hutt City Council
Yes,
runs a rate differential
yes,
when we look at
That's
our
right.
rating.
yes.
Are you familiar with that?
I made myself very familiar with it, I thought, at 10-year plan time. And my impression was that as far as the methodology you've used in the past and in the current rating year, I believe that that is probably as far as you can take it in relation to the fact that your general rate is based on property value. I'm aware, of course, that many councils don't do that. They take it on land value, which I believe does not recognise the difficult position of lower income households. I'm assuming, and I'm sure we're correct generally, that lower income householders occupy the lower valued property. Hence, CV value to me is the important option you've already adopted out of your available options.
After you. Thank you. So my next point for you would be then with the tools that we as elected people have and officers, if you wanted to even up the rates take, what would you suggest? Because I am very aware that in 50 years' time, 1 in 4 people will be 65 and over. So what in those conversations with our officers have you had around what that might look like?
Right. We're worried, of course, I should say, about continual mitigation. And generally, in all respects, health and everything, it's catching up with us. And there seems little room for it anyway. But getting back to that as it affects you, I feel that with the tools you've already got, that perhaps the only way that you can help the lower income families you've already got in your rating policy in terms of the hardship provision within the rating remission policies. I do have ideas about how that process of defining, which you will need to do, what is hardship and what is not. At some stage, I'd like the opportunity of commenting on what that might be in the best way of approaching it. I don't think that you can remit the rates on a particular property because, of course, it may be that in 1 year's time, someone entirely different owns it. And anyway, that's as far as I've taken it so far.
Thank you.
Your Worship.
Just a comment with Lou mentioned about the rating. My understanding is there's, I think, only one council left in the country that does land valuation, or none. It's all capital now. So there's no one does land valuation.
Yeah, I'm again sorry, Mr. Mayor. I didn't hear you clearly. Anyway.
It's about land value.
Fine.
Okay, Councillor Bentley.
Lou, thank you for speaking. You mentioned earlier about the hardship and rates of remittance. Is your position that you'd like to see that expanded or reduced?
Well, hardship, assuming that a ratepayer under your existing policy came to you with a hardship application, I think what you need, and I'm sure you will be aware, that that amounts in effect to an inquisition. And people that have all their life acquired an asset paid for out of tax-paid income and have presented themselves as for hire, for reward, they've not consulted accountants or anything else to make their property acquisitions, investments or anything like that, they will feel uncomfortable under an inquisition process. I think in that area, that needs to be refined, and I think it could be refined by certain criteria that you would come to presenting, and we'd be very much interested in helping with that. And once, if it is established, we would be prepared to actually, in effect, endorse the approach. And I'm talking about greyhound locally. I've yet to put this whole proposition before Greyhound New Zealand, and I'm not really able to do that until I have a success. In other words, until I have an arrangement where we are openly, in good faith, talking to each other. As soon as that arrives at my doorstep, I'll be asking other councils, through other greyhound organisations, to consider taking a similar approach. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Lou. Once again, thanks for helping with the rates calculator.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item, everyone, is Group Manager Engagement Strategy with Planning. And just before the officers have the opportunity to update us on anything, I just suggest that we step through the report and we ask questions of the officers when they come forward to talk about their topics. Okay, so our very first one is district plan changes.
If I could just give the updates, or at least a correction first, Madam Chair, if you're right. So I have one correction that I need to make to this paper. So in the attachment table 1, referring to plan change 47, incorrectly partway through that refers to plan change 49. Should be plan change 47 throughout that table reference. So plan change 47 is one that's confident.
Great.
With that correction, I'm happy to go
Okay,
through the
questions?
report and there are some updates, but I
Okay.
can go to those updates right now or
Yes, please.
as we go through. So the first of my updates is to the appeals, starting in paragraph 7 and paragraph 8. We talk about the 2 appeals, the regional policy statement appeals. That's made some progress in terms of clarity on the number of appellants and then the cross-party notices on all of those appeals. So there are 15 appeals, and most of those parties, if not all, have appealed, have joined as 274 parties to all the other appeals. For this council, we have only joined as 274 party to the other councils. So that is Kororua, Kapiti, Hutt City and Wellington City. We've only joined those 4 appeals. And we've only joined them in relation to issues that are of relevance to us, but that we hadn't made an appeal point ourselves on. So we have heard back that there will be some mediation happening on particularly the Indigenous biodiversity provisions at this stage. That's all we're able to do. In terms of our plan change 49, which was appealed with 1 appellant, 2 parties have joined the appeal. Those parties are available on our website, and they are Forest and Bird and the Silver Stream Railway. They have joined the appeal, and we are awaiting some information as to whether that will go to mediation at this stage. That's not yet clear, but we suspect that is the likely path. So that's that update. We have also an update on our landscape consultation for our Plan Change 48A. It's a couple of paragraphs down. We have started that consultation. It's opened on Wednesday, and we have 3 inquiries so far. We have 67 landowners who have these landscapes on their private land or parts of their private land, and so far the response has been relatively small, but we have only missed. So then the next update is just about the workshop for district plan matters was to be on the 10th of February. It has now been deferred to the 25th of February. So just a change of date there. We move on to paragraph 11. No, sorry. Paragraph 14. I have an update on the regional growth framework projects. Not specifically an update on the projects themselves, but just a little bit of a reset for the regional growth projects as a whole. They have a new lead person who is working within Greater Wellington Regional Council now rather than a little bit more independently, and that is Jane Lovell-Gadd. And the first meeting for the new arrangement of the senior staff group will be on the 14th of February, so that's Friday, and looking at the industrial land draft report. Industrial land. We have met with Ms. Lovell-Gadd and others, and the indications are that they're looking to prioritise projects a lot more than had been in the previous iteration of this, and that we will be looking very carefully at how strategically delivering what this council needs from us and this community needs from us with a project. The last of my updates is just in relation to the plan changes. Plan change 50. We are in a situation where with plan change 50, we have some uncertainty about the legislative changes that are coming our way around the highly productive land national policy statement. And there is a current timeframe that requires us to make a decision on Plan Change 50 by October this year. There is concern that that timeframe won't really be achievable, given the potential for quite a significant change in direction to come from central government around the middle of the year, which might drift to being a little bit later in the middle of the year. So what we are suggesting is that we ask the CEO to seek an extension to the timeframe to give us an additional year to make that decision. We do need to write to the minister to make that request, but that's our intention for this stage, to give council a little bit more time to make a good decision on Plan Change 50. We have prepared a draft letter to that effect, and we're just in the finalising stages to take that forward. It is actually able to be done into delegation. That's my updates.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Yeah, so you're talking there about the rule change, don't you?
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure about that because the thing's drifted on. How many years has it taken? The thing's gone on and on and on. And I actually think before we see, and there was a huge change from when we went out to consultation 5 years ago to what actually finished up. You look at the 2 pieces of paper, they don't even look the same. And I just think before we do anything like that, we need to meet as a council and go through it, because it is, well, I'm not sure how long it is, but it has to be at least 6 or 7 years that thing's gone on. It has to be.
So we originally consulted in 2020 on a draft proposal, but it had been to some reference groups and things in 2019. So we put out a draft proposal in 2020 and put out the final proposal in 2020.
But the draft and the original,
They are quite different.
hugely different. So I just think we need to redress that before we do that. And then the other issue is the industrial land that you're going to be talking about there. We need to be very vocal about that, because that is a disgrace. effectively basically saying there's no industrial land in the Wellington area, so everything can go to Wanganui and Palmerston. Well, with that goes jobs and all sorts of things. I mean, it has big implications for the Wellington region and for that regional approach to it. I mean, it's typical cherry picking. They don't want to be part of it, but suddenly because they think there might be a benefit, they all want to come on. And so, I mean, that needs to be circulated because it's something we should not be supporting big time.
Just through you, Madam Chair, I mean, we can certainly circulate that. There will be some surprises in there for you because in terms of where some of the consultants think there's potential industrial land within the region.
But yeah, exactly, and it was led, wasn't it, led by Horowhenua?
It is proposed that the future lead or the next steps would be Horowhenua.
Well, it's a Wellington thing. Horowhenua wanted to come, now they've disappeared, but now they want to come back. I mean, you can't cherry pick in this game. You either skin in the game and stay, but to suddenly decide that there's nothing in the Wellington region and we're heading everything to Wanganui and Manawatu, well, that doesn't cut with me, and I'm sure it doesn't cut with our council. But so we're not contributing or paying, we are, but we need to be speaking up about that big time and say we're not interested in being involved in.
Just through you, Madam Chair, as Emily mentioned, so the first meeting of the rebooted WRLC Senior Officers Group, or whatever it's called, is occurring this Friday, and that is the substantive item on the agenda. I mean, no decisions are going to be made at that, but I certainly hear the feedback. I'm certainly happy to circulate the report that is being considered by officers, noting that report, like everything within a regional context, goes up through a food chain before it ultimately would come back for consideration. And also note, as Emily noted earlier on, that we had planned at the workshop that was held earlier this week. We were planning to do an update on some of these kind of planning matters, so that has been deferred to the 25th of February, where it might be a good opportunity to discuss it.
Thank you. Councillor Swales.
Through you, Chair, then it would be quite an opportunity if that paper was circulated to us so that we have an insight before the workshop on the 25th. That would be really good. I now have other questions, if that's all right for you,
Sure.
Chair. So you said that our hearing might go to mediation. Who pays for that cost? With Forest and Bird and Silver Stream.
So each party pays their own costs at that stage.
Right.
And it only becomes a case of one party paying anybody else's costs once something's been through a court process.
Right.
Usual process with plan changes is the costs for where they lie, as they call it.
Yeah.
So we would be responsible for any legal costs that we incur ourselves as a council and our staff time going into those processes. But everybody pays their own costs.
And we anticipated that we would have these objections, didn't we? And therefore we budgeted for it.
We anticipated we might have these objections, but not entirely sure that we budgeted for it because it's very difficult to do so. But there is some legal budget that will be available.
I have another question. So I'm going to the fast track bill on page 6. So under 22, do we know of any other applicants that have gone from our city to that?
No, we do not have any. I checked out their new web page that they created, and there is nothing up there. So this time, as I understand it, we're not aware whether the Gilmer Timber Company application has been made or not, and whether or not anybody else has taken the opportunity. Because as you point out, you don't have to be listed in the legislation to make it.
So can I ask it? So it would be really good for officers if they could actually keep us up to date with regard to that application that is in there for the Guildford Timber Company, because I'm sure some of us around the table are a bit time pressed to be able to keep an eye on that website to see where it is in the process, because we're all very aware that the application is there and it would be good to know where it falls.
The Chair, happy to update you as soon as there is a lodged application or any information around this.
Awesome, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Anyone else? Yes, councillor Bentley?
Thank you, Chair. Just back on the Wellington Regional Growth Framework, and I share the Mayor's concerns. The thing is just gone off the rails. The scope creep is insane, as well as the consultant gravy train, that's a better term. In terms of para 15 and 16, work placements include a health protection officer based at Hutt Hospital. I didn't think this framework had anything to do with health. That's a central government matter, nothing to do with local government. Why is that part of it?
Through you, Madam Chair, I was actually surprised to read that as well. I'm not sure, Emily, if you're closer to what that particular matter was about.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not. It was an update that we received from the Regional Leadership Committee. Those placements are primarily mana whenua into other organisations and the other way around to gain a wide ranging experience within there, but it does seem an odd.
And that's great that they're doing placements, but it's nothing to do with what this whole thing's about. This is about how the region's going to be growing. And I just don't understand how that's part of it at all.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, and if we could get some answers to what other, because there's a whole bunch of people they're hiring. And I actually haven't seen one good bit of work from this whole thing. They're good at making reports, but they sit on the shelf. And I don't actually see any benefit from it. And we've just heard about the ever increasing pressure on our rates. And this is looking to me as one of the best things we could cut. I don't see any tangible benefit to Upper Hutt other than being at the table and ticking the central government box that they make us be part of this. But it's just a waste of money.
So maybe the question is around getting some more information.
Oh, I asked my question before, I was just having a rant. Thank you.
You're allowed.
It was a good rant.
Chair, if I may respond to one tiny part of that question.
Yeah.
The two things that we have received that are of particular use to us are legislative compliance requirements, so the future development strategy and the regional housing and business capacity assessment. Those two projects have been of great use to us, both in developing our long-term plan and with our district plan work as well.
Yeah.
Although I take your point that some other projects perhaps are of significantly less value to us.
And just while we're on this framework, one of the next upcoming projects is called the Upper Hutt Structure Plan. Is that going to be led by the leadership committee and their staff or by Upper Hutt City Council?
That would be led by Upper Hutt City Council, although it is entirely discretionary as to whether we undertake. And we will come back to you on the 25th about that.
And what does that mean versus our district plan?
The idea of the Upper Hutt Structure Plan, when it was envisaged, was that it would be an implementation plan that falls out of the future development strategy, and it would try to cover any gaps between our district plan and that strategy. We will come back to this in a little bit more detail, but there may not be.
Thank you.
Councillor Carey?
On regional growth.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. For you, it's actually just about the dangerous sanitary buildings policy. Seeing it's in, if there's any difference, if we're likely to see any difference coming through in reporting for dangerous and sanitary buildings, is it?
Teacher, I'm not able to comment on whether we're likely to see any difference in reporting. We have updated the policy to meet the legislation. And will mean it's able to be enforced if that situation arises.
Thank you very much. So could we move that we receive the notes and
Happy to do that.
thank you, your worship, seconder.
Councillor Bentley put his hand up.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Just one final thing before we do. The corporate planning, the annual plan. And we had a presentation and a submission Do we have anything to add or comment on that? No? No, okay, good. All right.
Ready. Ready.
So 5:05, meeting closed.
Past